All right, guys, we're going to get going. Today we have a special alum, and when Coach Lee took over this program, we had a conversation. It was about how can we continue to connect you guys with alums that have been very successful, but it also left like important clues, right? Because successful people leave. And today we have Reggie Ford with us. And so, a little backstory, we actually been working to get Reggie here for quite a while. Schedule-wise, just haven't like worked out for us. Reggie has been very critical to the growth of our financial literacy program. He's really impacted not only myself, but the people in student development in ways in which to help you guys continue to grow and flourish as people. And, when I had my first initial conversation with Reggie, it was really about, man, how could I be a vessel for you all? Like, what's some things that I can do to help the student athletes out? And so I wanted to invite him here today to share his knowledge, his wisdom, his story, his testimony. And, he's a double door, graduated in 2013 with a degree in economics, finished in 2014 at the Owen School, Master of Accounting. And you see the accolades, right? It's, he's a best-selling author with PTSD. He's Nashville Black 40 Under 40, 40 Under 40, Business Journal 40 Under 40, Nashville Top 30 Under 30, and was featured in Forbes Top 100 People in Finance. But to me, the one thing that stood out was he's a certified yoga instructor. And here's why. 2009, I started to have bad ankles, like in the league, like just my ankles were crushing me. And I started to do yoga, and it helped alleviate some of the pain that I had. And so moving forward, I became, very interested in yoga. Me and Reggie were just talking. I learned how to do headstands and all that cool stuff. But, man, please welcome Reggie Ford here today with us. So, Reggie, you graduated from MBA, prestigious school here. I know we have some MBA alums here. Just talk about your transition from MBA to Vanderbilt. How was it?
Yeah, definitely. First, thank you, Earl, for reaching out. Coach, y'all for being here, for listening. It's an honor to be back here in the stomping ground. So I want to just thank y'all for allowing me to have this time. But from my transition from MBA, Montgomery Bell Academy, which is right down the road, to here was different. Like my transitions through all my life have been different than a lot of people's, because I was the first person in my family to even think about going to college. And I didn't have, I was a great athlete. I played all the sports, and I had some offers, but that was just like truly organic. I didn't go to a single camp. I didn't know anything about how to be a recruit. I didn't know anything about that. And so when it came time to make that decision, I was sitting there like, why aren't these schools reaching out? Vandy was one of them, like didn't reach out from a football perspective. Why isn't that? And so I decided, I chose from between Harvard, Yale, Penn, Stanford. I was like, I want to stay at home. I want to stay at home. I want to go to Vandy. So I went to Vandy just on purely academics. And within the first, I would say it was quicker than that. The first game of the season, they have the gold rush. I don't know if they still do it, where the freshmen run on the field in their gold shirts. And I was one of those students running on the field, not going to play that game. And I just felt like a scrub, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what is this? And so like that moment, I was like, okay, I gotta figure out a way to get on the field. And so I talked to the coaches who knew my coaches from high school and everything else. And before you know it, I was on the field. I had earned some playing time and all of that. And so it was a roundabout way of getting to this place, getting in this room just like y'all. But it was something I was truly grateful for. But I think in that story, it's like you got to be an advocate for yourself. Like if I had never thought about something that I truly wanted, which was to be a part of something bigger than me at a university as great as this, I would have never done that. I would have never walked into that office by myself, as cold as it was, as scary as it was, shaking walking down the hall. I had to do that. I had to be an advocate for myself, stand up for what I wanted, and say, hey, this is something I want. I want to talk to the decision makers in charge. How can I do that? And it paid off, and it has done wonders for my life.
So you come here, you finish with a degree in econ. We have some incoming freshmen that's just got here. Talk about time management your ability to, really mesh the two at a high level?
Yes, yes. So econ was a challenging major. You got some of the country's greatest econ teachers at this school, and so they demand a lot. And you come to a school like Vandy, you realize real quick that it's not football then academics on the side. It's like they want you to prioritize your academics, and we want you to prioritize your sport. And so it comes down to really looking at, we all got 24 hours in a day, and how are you best utilizing that time? And for me, it was a matter of trying to mix the things that really fulfilled me, which was the brotherhood, the social aspect of being on a college campus. How do you mix that with the work that you have to do? So you getting camaraderie when you work out, when you practice, when you do all those things. But how can you translate that to the classroom as well? So in the group projects, or if you got a test and some of y'all getting together and studying together, because I guarantee you, it may be something on an assignment or a test that you may not get. It may not have come through to you the way the teacher delivered it, but somebody in this room has a different way, a different mnemonic, or I have some crazy ways of remembering things. I might start rhyming and rapping or put it in different colors, and maybe that might help you. And so taking the same thing that you do on the field and in the workout, in the weight room, and translating that to the classroom is one way to just like make sure that you're making all those things fit together. But at the end of the day, you have to you gotta grow up. Like, I think that transition from high school to college, especially for some who may have had a very, very easy time in high school, it's a quick transition, especially that first semester, freshman year, which is my worst semester of my entire life in terms of academics. It was a matter of growing up and really dedicating the time and understanding that at certain hours you gotta block off time for this and no distractions in the time for that. So it's just like you wouldn't take your phone to the practice field. So if you dedicate an hour to studying or 2 hours to studying, leave your phone somewhere, turn it off, put it on D&D. So
let's stay on campus, right?
Yeah.
We have community here amongst ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Football, true brotherhood, as we say, pride in everything we do. But when you transition and you're on campus, just talk about your ability to socialize and find your network and group of people on campus.
Yes, that's so crucial, and I didn't realize that until very late in my college career. So you're going to school with some of the country's brightest and most connected people. Like, that is, not many people can say that, especially in the SEC. Like, you're going to school with some of the brightest people, and it's easy to fall into the habit of only hanging out with student athletes, with only hanging out with football players. But if you do that, you have wasted so much of this experience, because they're some of the same textbooks that we use, they use east, a couple hours east, and we come out with a different degree than they do because of that network, because of those people, right? And so if you are walking around and only headphones in, not communicating with anybody, you're doing yourself a disservice. And so I would encourage every single one of y'all to make a friend of somebody from a different background, who has different interests than you, whatever it may be, because that person, like, I'm 10 years out. Oh man, I'm 10 years out from undergrad, and some of those folks, like, I just got back from a tech conference. My best friend is a dude who studied computer science. I didn't have any interest or any desire in that, but because of that, now I have all of his strengths. I can lean on all of his strengths. I can talk to him. I can lean on his network. And so, yeah, you gotta network with the folks that are around you, because they say your network is your net worth, and you'll see that as you progress, because it's not always about what you know. It's about who you know, and more importantly, I think this is important because your reputation is so crucial. It's about who knows you, and what do they know about you? What do they know about your character? What do they know about how you show up for people who may look a little different, who may not get the same respect from everybody in the world, but how do you treat that person? So who knows you and how do they know you?
So you finished in 2013. You then come back on school, 2014, Master of Accounting. and then you open up your company, right?
Yeah.
So you start Rose Creek Wealth Management. What influence and connections that Vanderbilt provide for you in order to get started
Yeah.
to launch your business?
Yeah. So it was, I had to, I think it's important between that transition from graduating and starting Rose Creek, I had to learn. I had to be in the field. I had to be, I had to get the knowledge first. I think especially in this hustle grind era that we're in now, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur without putting in the necessary steps that it takes. And so before I started Rose Creek, I first became a certified public accountant, CPA, after graduating from the MAC program, and worked with Deloitte, one of the largest public accounting firms in the country. And at that firm, I was working on billion dollar companies, looking at their financials, looking at how they produce their financials to make sure that when we read them as investors, as individuals, as creditors, or whatever, that they're accurately stated. So that's what I was doing as an auditor. So I did that for a couple of years, and it gave me a lot of knowledge on the things that I do now. And then from there, I went to a wealth management company. I realized that accounting was not the passion that I wanted, which is gonna be the same case for some of y'all, right? You're gonna get into a field and realize that you do not like it. And it has nothing to do about the field, nothing to do about the people in it, but we all have different passions and desires. And so that was my transition. I got into wealth management, and I remember sitting across from individuals where we're talking about their lives, right? In wealth management, you're talking about people's lives. This is the money they've earned, the money they're trying to grow, the money they're trying to leave to the next generation. And so we got to doing that, and I'm sitting across from a family, and I'm like, this is it. It filled me with so much satisfaction that I wanted to continue to pursue that. And at the firm that I was working at, I just became a sponge, and I was absorbing as much as I could from every angle until I got to a point where, you know, there were certain things about business that I'm like, okay, I take the good from here, I want to eliminate the bad from here, and I want to create something on my own. I've always been very entrepreneurial in my endeavors, you know, going back to, I would be cutting a lot of hairs in here today, selling fireworks, selling shirts, selling candy, whatever it was. I was always selling something, doing something. And so the entrepreneurial spirit just came back and decided to start Rose Creek. And it was huge for me because it was an encapsulation of all of my life's experiences just with the name itself. Some of y'all might know the poem by Tupac, but the rose that grew out of a crack in the concrete, you know, through all the perceived impossibilities, through the poor soil, no light, no water, its tenacity helped it reach the sun, right? And you think about that adversity and then still having success to become a rose, that is what I felt like I had endured my entire life. And so I wanted to create an atmosphere and an environment that celebrated that, not only for me, but for clients, for families, for employees, for everybody. And yeah, that's what it became.
So let's stay on that topic because I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak and really tell your story, right? You're one of the most humble guys that I've ever been around, okay? Just been truthful. Best-selling author. You write PTSD. I hear you speak, and I'm blown away, all right? Tell them a little backstory as the reason why you decided to write the book.
Yeah, so that, you see all the accolades, and I'm so proud of all the things that you see. But what that doesn't show is I mean, with the title of the book, it shows it. So that's kind of after all those things, but it didn't show that dysfunction. It didn't show the perseverance. It didn't talk about all the things that was going on behind the scenes that I was having to deal with on a daily basis that was really impacting me and how I showed up in the world. And so the book started not that long ago. 2019 was when things really started to kick off. And I was going through some of the worst mental health of my life. I had my grandmother, who was my rock throughout my life. Whenever crazy stuff happened, I would turn to her. She was just so nurturing, more nurturing than my mom, more nurturing than my dad, my dad was in and out of prison. My mom was very emotionally disconnected from me. And so my grandma was that person. And she had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And I just remember just sitting there thinking, like, what am I going to do after this? How am I going to deal with life? Who am I going to talk to? Because I didn't really like to talk to anybody. I didn't open up to many people. And writing became my outlet. And I would journal, and it started on my phone, you know, I think January 1st, 2019, I woke up to a call from my dad who said, something's not right. Something's not right. She's not doing right. And so I was like, let me come and see what's going on. So I rush over there, and my grandma is laying in the bed, like stiff as a plank. And I'm like, I dropped to my knees. I'm like, damn, I thought she was gone, like dead that day. And then I see her like twitch a little bit. So I go into the room, and she's still alive, but like still stiff. Her lips are pursed. And I'm just like, my heart is racing. But I'm trying to stay calm. My dad is walking around like a zombie because he doesn't know how to deal with it either. And so that was like the kickoff to Happy New Year. And got her to the hospital. Turned out she was going to be okay for a couple more months and everything. But my dad, a couple days later, dealing with all the things that he was dealing with, he pulls a gun out on my aunt, my uncle, and it's just chaos. Chaos ensued. And I'm in the middle of it all trying to mediate. Meanwhile, I'm 6 months into starting Rose Creek. I'm 6 months into marriage. I'm like, it's everything's going on at the same time. And so I just got to writing and trying to figure out why life was what it was, how it got to that point, why I was feeling the way that I was feeling in my head. And when I started to answer those questions, it came down to a lot of stuff that had went unaddressed for so long. Childhood trauma, young adulthood trauma that I used as fuel, right? Instead of talking about it, instead of dealing with it, instead of finding healthy coping mechanisms, it was unhealthy for me a little bit. Y'all might look and be like, this dude looks like he's 20 years old and he got all this stuff. Like, because that's what I did. I just worked and I worked and I worked. And it became unhealthy for me at a point. And it ended with me on the ground, crying, bawling. Like I think Forbes had just published an article. I think I had just made top 100, and I was bawling on the ground. I was crying. I didn't know how to deal with life. And so it became crucial for me. It's so important for me to, after that, take care of my mental health, take care of the things that we don't usually talk about, and be vulnerable about my story so it gives other people permission to do the same and not think that makes them weak, that makes them less of a man or less of a person because they're doing that. And so that's what it was. It was about, empowering other people to be able to tell their stories and heal from the things that they've gone through.
That's awesome. So with success comes distraction.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about navigating, staying, like on that path, knowing that, hey, I've been successful. There's a lot of external distraction that's headed my way. Talk me through your thought process on navigating that space. Yeah.
When it comes to I want to start by saying success, because that's a question that I've been asking over and over repeatedly, in school interviews, in job interviews, anytime I meet new people and we get on a deep conversation, I ask them how they define success, because that can be defined in a million different ways. And so one, it would be a matter of what does success look like for you? Because you can look at success as a lot of money, a lot of status, and that as a form of success. Now I think after many years, I add a huge component of happiness and well-being in defining success. So I don't have to sacrifice the well-being for the money, the well-being for the status. It's a part of it. But the distractions that arise, like you're going to be exposed to so many different things, so many different people, so many different mindsets. And I think it is crucial for you to know who you are. First, you got to understand your own values. And I think, like, if we could search 100 values and just look, it's going to be 100 different words. And you see them around camp, you see them all over the place on the walls and everything. And you got to know what is true to you, right? To pick 3 to 6 of those that are true to you. And I wear some of mine, right? So this is unconditional love and grace. This is peace. And this is self-love, right? Those are some that are true for me. And another is ambition. That's another one that's true for me. And so if you get into a situation down the line where you know yourself and then things are starting to distract you and things are coming in, you go back to your values and you say, do these align with my values? Yes or no? If it doesn't, I'm not gonna go that path. If it does, then maybe I follow into it and see where it takes me, because you've set the values for yourself, because you ultimately have a goal, a mission in life that you want to achieve. And if you start to walk within that, then you're headed in the right direction if your values are set. and you stick to those things. So it's a matter of sticking to your values, knowing what you want out of life, and just dedicating yourself to that.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about certified yoga instructor.
Yeah.
All right. So we had the conversation earlier where you had planner,
Yeah.
right? Both feet,
Both.
right? What was the initial reaction when you got into yoga and you started to see the impact that it had on your body?
Yeah. So 2015 is when I first walked into a yoga studio. I probably done yoga with a video couple years before that. So I'm coming up on 10 years of doing yoga. And when I stepped into the studio, I was dealing with plantar fasciitis, back spasms, all the stuff that some of y'all probably feel on the daily with the wear and tear of your body and lifting and everything like that. And I was just looking for something more passive to help balance my body out, to give me the relief that I needed. And I signed up for a 2-week trial with this yoga studio, and I went every single day for 2 weeks. And at the end of those 2 weeks, the plantar fasciitis that was in both of my heels went away. And this is after probably 4 years of hobbling to the bathroom every morning. If anybody has ever had plantar fasciitis, I'm sorry, because it hurts. But hobbling to the bathroom every single morning for 4 or 5 years, it went away. And so for that physical benefit alone, I was hooked to yoga. I was like, okay, I don't have to feel that. It's not going to be a part of my life forever because I'm working through that. And then I would say about 6 months into being consistent, still not every day, but being consistent with my yoga practice, I started to just feel overall benefits, like from a mind, body, spirit, everything really happening. And it was, in yoga, I teach yoga now, and so I tell students who come in and say, I'm not flexible, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's not about what you can and cannot do. I want people to show up, set an intention for what they want, kind of like going back to those values, like what do you want, and then breathe. If you can sit in here and breathe through the discomfort, breathe through the pain, breathe through all the things that you want to run away from, then you're doing yoga. And so that started to translate to real life, where I would be in a situation where I'm ready to pop off. Like, you done pissed me off, you done disrespect me, I'm ready to pop off. But then I come back to my yoga and a couple breaths, this is gonna pass. A couple breaths and the discomfort passes. And so it started to it initially was the physical benefits, and then it turned into so many more. So it's been so huge for my life. Oh, and shout out to Small World Yoga, which is right up the street at 12th and Edge Hill. June 21st, completely free to the public. It's International Day of Yoga. All over the world, people are doing yoga. We have a free yoga event downtown at Cumberland Park, right across from the Titan Stadium. Come out, check it out. There'll be hundreds of people out there.
No, I'll probably be there. Just keep it real. So, back to football, all right? Renovation's happening right now as we speak. What's your most memorable moment playing at the stadium? Used to be the Dud. It's not the Dud.
Yeah.
It's First Bank now. What's your most memorable moment?
I think this is gonna be different, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the reasons I chose to come to Vandy was because when I was in 5th grade, I played in the Dud. I played there through a program called Backfield in Motion. Shout out to Backfield. I was one of the first students to come through the program and made the All-Star game, and it was played in the Dud, and I got to run up and down. I'm meeting players. I'm meeting y'all, right, as a little kid. I'm getting to meet y'all, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to do that one day. And when I was 10 and 11, I got to play in 2 All-Star games. I did that, and that kind of like locked it in for me that I wanted to be at Vandy. And so when I think about most memorable is that, because, I was so young and that was so impressionable on me. That was it, getting to run up and down the field. And I think if I were to say most memorable moment from a, oh man, I got some moments, but from playing here, it would have been, I think, there's so many good days. Georgia, just playing Georgia, because at the time we had a lot of folks from Georgia. So it felt, even though we're in Tennessee, it felt like an in-state rivalry game, like one of those big state games that you play against your rivals with. And it was a lot of people flying around, a lot of good things. They ended up they cheated us on a block punt and some weird stuff where we ended up scoring and winning that game. But after the game, my buddy Micah Powell, he and I wish I could find this picture. I'll send you the picture so you can share it with the team. But we're walking off the field and it's a lot of jaw jacking, and we got Micah Powell who's sitting there looking like Terminator right up against some dude that he knows from Georgia, and they're just face to face. And you got all this red, whole sea of red on this side, whole sea of black on this side, and it's just like that is the competition. That is the SEC. It was epitomized in that picture, and so yeah, I think I think that would be probably it. But so many good moments. So many good moments.
So we talk a lot about community service. We talk a lot about impact. We have a relationship with Boys and Girls Club. We have a relationship with Backfield in Motion. And what you all just witnessed here today is a living testimony of the impact that you guys have when you're out in the community. So don't take it for granted. All right, like when we have kids around, know that you are making an everlasting imprint on their lives and continue to be the great stewards of Vanderbilt football. Let's give Reggie Ford a round of applause. So we'd like to open it up for any questions.
Do you have like a book recommendation that's a good self-start for like better understanding wealth management?
The Intelligent Investor, it's a good primer to understanding the basics of investing, the basics of wealth management. I think it's a really good book. It was written a while ago, but it was in this transition period where the industry was changing from a very much sales-driven commission to let's do what's in the best interest of the client. And so I think that is one that I would start with for sure. Ass back. When you run on the field and coach is like, get your ass back. Like, nah. I played corner and I played a little bit of punt returner. A lot of special teams. I was running up and down the field on special teams. So any special team guys, like you're making an impact, like for real. Like sometimes it's overlooked, it's not as glorified, but we need that because last game, it wasn't in the dub, but bowl game. Last play of my Vanderbilt career was a kick return for a touchdown. The other team, Cincinnati, ran it back on us. So like, had we tackled them, we probably would have won that game. So special teams are important. So know that you make an impact, even if that's all you're doing. That's huge.
Right.
So you said your first semester, like academically, was definitely your worst like ever.
Mm-hmm.
So like now being through that, what would you have done differently going into it?
I think for me, it was the worst semester because I came in a little arrogant, a little cocky, thinking because I had done so well in high school that it was going to be easy. And it just wasn't the case. Vandy's still going to put the pressure on you. It's still going to be challenging. And so I would have, one, just committed the time. I didn't commit enough time to my studies. And then and another part of that is where I think Vandy and some great institutions where they challenge you, it's not just regurgitating something that somebody's told you. It's like, where's the creative thought behind that so that you're putting out, so that you're truly thinking. But then the other piece to it was I never talked to a professor. Not in class. I didn't raise my hand. I was too afraid to ask questions. I was real shy. Like, so anybody that's done raise their hand already, I'm like proud of you for that because I couldn't do that back in the day. I was too anxious and shy to do that. And I didn't go to office hours or anything like that. But that changed, by the time I got into the master's program, I was in office hours and I was taking that 88 to a 92, right? And that's huge when you look at GPAs and things like that. And so, I would say communicate with your professors early, often, and make sure that they know you by name. because some of the professors here are going to see you come up with a shirt to say VUFB on it, and they're going to have a sour taste in their mouth because of some past experience or because of something that they feel about sports. And if you can show the humanity of you and that you're trying, it'll go a long way, because it will change. It will, that C can turn into a B, that C can turn into an A real quick just because someone sees that you're showing up. So I probably would have done a lot more of that. Yes, sir.
Coming into Vandy, did you always want to be an econ major?
No, good question. So coming in, and I think this is kind of a cool part of my story where it's coming full circle. Coming in, I thought I was going to study psychology. And I had an 8 a.m. psychology class with a native French-speaking teacher, so English was her second language, and that was a lot for 8 a.m. with all these concepts in psychology, and I was just like, if this is what psychology is going to be like, it's not for me. I wish I would have stuck through it, though, because it was always been a passion of mine. It's like any free time reading that I would do, it would be psychology type of stuff. Anybody interested in psychology, the first thing that I got into was lie detecting, right? Growing up and traumatized, and you don't trust anybody. Like, I want to be able to read people and tell who's lying and all of that. And so there's an author, scientist named Paul Ekman. And Paul Ekman, I read probably 4 or 5 of his books, which was like the first time I really read things for pleasure. And I got into it that way. And then I started to learn about so many other different ways of thinking about psychology, not just is somebody lying or not. And so I originally came in thinking psychology, but then because I wanted to deviate from that, it was like, okay, business. I want to learn business, and that's econ, or even HOD is a great for business, but econ seemed like the closest thing to a business major that we had at the time. And Young Jock had just come out with the album Hustlenomics, if that tells y'all how old I am. And I just told people I was studying Hustlenomics. Coach.
Like you talk about, PTSD, your book, and about how you were experiencing and coming to peace with some of the wounds that you had from growing up, and you talked about some of those, and I relate to that too. I think sometimes for these guys, they're really close to those wounds. Mm-hmm. It takes some distance, but can you talk about a little bit about what you discovered as where those were for you?
Yeah.
And maybe in some ways there will be a relatability there. And then also, like, who are people, you mentioned backfield, but that you felt like when you reflect back and say from that, broken self to now, that helped you along the way?
Absolutely. So it's hard, like, doing that inner work, going back and seeing, like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on inside of me. How do I come up out of that? Do I want to come up out of that, right? You got to have the desire to want to come up out of it, and then how to do it. But one of the things that kept coming up as I was writing, like, I didn't even start to journal it with the intent on writing a book, but I was just writing because it was therapeutic for me. But I had like shared some of that with some people that I trusted, and one thing that kept coming up was the relationships with my parents and how complicated those were. Because, like, your parents, like, you love your parents to death. They brought you here, right? But then also because of their trauma and the things that they were exposed to and the way that they knew how to show love, which may not be the way that this person's family shows love or the way that we hope that love is shown to us, it can have an impact on us. And at an early time, it was normalized for me, right? That that's the way that a mom talks to her son. That's the way that a dad treats his son, and that's just how I deal with it. But it's out of love. And it got to a point, like Coach, you said, like when you're so close to it, it's really hard to separate those things. But I have a chapter in the book called "Escaping the Fire," where I say, like, if you're burning, or let's say you're in boiling water and you're just sitting there in boiling water and you start to get used to it, right? You heard about the frog. The frog sits in this boiling water, and its body starts to adapt to that environment, right? So it doesn't know that it's set on fire and it's boiling and it's cooking. It's adapting to it. And the only time that you really get to understand that what you were in was so painful, so hard, was when you get to get out of that. So college was one of those moments for me where I wasn't at home. From 17 on, I haven't been back home, right? During summers, I was living with somebody else, or I was living on campus. During every break, I had the little sticker on my wall, on my door, because I was still on campus. I didn't go home because this place was so peaceful for me. It gave me a time to think. It gave me time to just have some silence and not have to deal with the things that I was dealing with at home. And it just gave me a place to be. Throughout my life, it was a lot of transitions of, sometimes I knew where you could deliver mail, sometimes I didn't. And I had too much pride, which was shame, that I couldn't call that homeless. Even because we had something over our head, but it wasn't always, ours. And so it gave me a home. Vandy was home for a really long time. And so it was a matter of just really tapping into that connection with my parents, the connection with a lot of things that happened as a young child. And I posted, if anybody's following me on social media, Reggie D forward on all of it if y'all want to follow me. But one of my cousins died when I was 17 years old. He got murdered. And I hadn't dealt with that. I didn't do anything to deal with that. I didn't do anything to deal with the death of my friend when I was 14 years old. And all of that has started to catch up with me. So things that you don't think from your childhood, it has an impact. And you spaz off in this situation, or you feel a certain way when your girlfriend looks at a dude, all those things I was dealing with, right? And I can get real with y'all about all of that stuff. But it came back to that stuff that happened as a child. But to the other part of your question, backfield in motion was so huge for me because for the first time in my early childhood, I had other than my grandfather was phenomenal in my life. I had positive black male role models that I could look to that showed up consistently and were there for me and showed me that there was another route. Right? My dad sold drugs and all of my family gangs and everything else. And so that was kind of the persona you assume when that's all you know. But when you see somebody else that went to college and that has, a family and all of that, it rewires your brain a little bit. And so through backfield emotion, I started to see some of that. And then going to NBA, it was a little different for me because I was the only kid coming from the hood into a place that was so different than everything I had grown up in. But take aside the socioeconomic differences and the racial differences and the cultural differences, I'm still seeing the love and the beauty that's shared between people that's given to me, and I'm saying that it can be a different way. So Joe Davis, who started Backfield in Motion, was pivotal for me in my life. Coach McGugan, Daniel McGugan, whose great grandfather is the name on this building. He was my head coach in high school. Still talk to him to this day, and he's love. And so I always found ways to fill that gap where the voids that I had in my own personal life, I filled it with somebody else that I could see who loved and cared for me. I saw somebody had their hand up earlier over here.
Any other questions? All right. Another round of applause for Reggie for We have team meeting starting in 6 minutes, so you guys have a few moments of rest. Come thank Reggie for being here, and we'll get started in 6 minutes.
Cool. Appreciate that. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Unbelievable, man.
Thank you.
Thanks.